Imagine this. You walk into a room where nothing is demanded of you. No resume, no introduction, no explanation. The air is thick with attention. Some people notice you immediately. Others don't. One woman is striking. Perfect features, effortless style. The kind of beauty that turns heads on instinct alone. Another woman enters quietly. No spectacle, no performance. Yet something in the room shifts. Conversations pause. Eyes follow her without urgency, but with gravity. People straighten their posture. They listen when she speaks. They remember what she says. Why? If beauty is supposed to be the ultimate currency, if attraction is visual, immediate, instinctive, then why does discipline command a deeper kind of gravity? Why does it linger long after beauty has done its work? Why does one fade with time, while the other seems to grow sharper, heavier, more undeniable? You've been told a story your entire life, a seductive one, that beauty opens doors, that it softens the world, that if you look the part, life will bend a little more easily in your favor. And to some extent, that story is true. Beauty is a key, but it is not a foundation. It grants access, not authority, attention, not allegiance, desire, not respect. Yet look closer. Watch who people follow when things become difficult. Watch who others trust when the stakes rise. Watch who is still standing when comfort disappears, when admiration turns into expectation, when time begins to ask its brutal questions. It is rarely the most beautiful person in the room. There is a quiet unease in admitting this, because discipline is not decorative. It cannot be borrowed, filtered, or applied at the last minute. It does not announce itself loudly. It reveals itself slowly, through consistency, restraint, and an almost uncomfortable level of self-command. Discipline is not immediately attractive in the way beauty is. It doesn't beg to be admired. It dares to be tested. And here lies the paradox that unsettles most people. What truly attracts us in the long run is not what pleases the eye, but what signals reliability, depth, and control. Think about the people you admire most. Not casually like, admire. The ones whose presence feels grounded. The ones whose lives seem ordered even when chaos presses in. Are they admired because they are flawless? Or because they are formidable? Because they have mastered something, time, impulse, fear, themselves? Beauty invites desire. Discipline commands trust. And trust, real trust, is intoxicating. This is where discomfort begins, because discipline is earned in private. It is built in mornings no one sees, in choices that feel boring, repetitive, even lonely. It demands sacrifice without applause. Beauty, on the other hand, often arrives unearned, or at least perceived that way. If discipline is more attractive, why do we spend so much of our lives chasing beauty instead? Why do we invest hours refining appearances but resist routines? Why do we curate images but neglect habits? Why does the idea of being admired feel safer than the idea of being formidable? Because discipline exposes you. It removes excuses. It strips away the comforting lie that potential is enough. Discipline forces confrontation with who you are when motivation disappears, when nobody is watching, when praise is gone, when beauty no longer shields you from consequence. And that confrontation is terrifying. There is another question hiding beneath the first, more personal, more dangerous. What happens when beauty stops working? Time does not negotiate. Youth does not renew itself. Attention moves on. And when it does, what remains? Do people still listen? Do they still trust? Do they still feel your presence before you speak? Or does silence answer for you? Somewhere deep inside, you already know the truth. You felt it in moments when discipline showed itself. Not loudly, but unmistakably. In the calm of someone who keeps promises. In the authority of someone who doesn't chase validation. In the gravity of someone who has trained themselves to endure discomfort without complaint. that gravity is not accidental. It is cultivated. And once cultivated, it changes everything. But understanding why discipline eclipses beauty, why it has always done so, and why it always will, requires peeling back layers most people never question. Layers shaped by psychology, culture, and fear. Layers that quietly train you to value the visible over the vital. And that is where the real story begins. There is something deeply ingrained in the way we see the world, an invisible thread that has been woven into the fabric of human existence for centuries. This thread leads us to believe, almost without question, that beauty is the key to success, that physical attractiveness is synonymous with worth, that it holds the power to unlock doors, control narratives, and influence outcomes. But why? Why has beauty been elevated to such an iconic status in human history? And what does it hide about the deeper forces that govern our desires, our identities, and our behavior? To understand this, we need to dig into the roots of our psychology, into the human condition, as philosophers have long called it. The philosophers of existentialism, such as Jean-Paul Sartre and Friedrich Nietzsche, believed that human beings, in their quest for meaning and authenticity, often sought external validation as a way of escaping the internal struggle with their own existence. Sartre's concept of bad faith describes this process, the tendency to live according to external expectations, to make ourselves objects of others' gaze, to seek approval from society instead of embracing our own internal compass. Beauty, then, becomes an easy currency to trade. It is a reflection that society gives back to you when you fit its mold. It is a form of validation that can be quickly exchanged for admiration and attention. But Nietzsche, in his work Thus Spoke Zarathustra, rejected the slave morality that comes with this external validation. He believed that the truly powerful person, the Übermensch, rejects societal conventions, including the superficial desire for approval, and instead creates their own value system. In this framework, the pursuit of beauty becomes a shallow quest for others' approval. It isn't a mark of true power. It is an escape from responsibility. Discipline, on the other hand, is an active, conscious decision to master oneself, a rejection of external validation, and a commitment to something greater. Nietzsche believed the true path to greatness lies not in the pursuit of comfort or admiration, but in the cultivation of personal strength and mastery over one's own will. But how does this philosophical perspective intersect with the way we live our lives today? It's one thing to read Nietzsche's words, another to internalize them in a world where beauty and attractiveness are seen as signs of success. From media to advertisements, we are bombarded with a narrative that tells us we must look a certain way to be worthy of success, love, and respect. These cultural forces infiltrate our psyche, convincing us that beauty is a shortcut, a magic ticket to a better life. The psychology behind this is even more insidious. Cognitive biases, such as the halo effect, which suggests that people who are physically attractive are also assumed to have other positive traits, like intelligence or kindness, play a significant role in reinforcing this belief. Society equates attractiveness with success, and as a result, we prioritize it above other, more substantial qualities, like character or discipline. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, warned about this in his groundbreaking book, Man's Search for Meaning. Frankl wrote that the most profound human desire is not for pleasure or for beauty, but for meaning. Meaning, he argued, can only be found through personal responsibility and self-transcendence, through choosing to confront suffering, to persevere, and to create something beyond ourselves. Frankl's words cut through the fog of surface-level achievements. Beauty, while captivating, is a fleeting illusion. It cannot provide lasting meaning. Discipline, however, is rooted in the long game. It transcends the temporary, the the superficial and places value on inner strength, resilience, and purpose. Yet, in modern culture, this deeper truth remains largely suppressed. It is drowned out by the cacophony of Instagram influencers, reality TV stars, and celebrity culture that equates visibility with worth. We live in an age of fast validation, a world where beauty is instantly rewarded, and where instant gratification often trumps the slow, sometimes painful process of building real character. We are so deeply conditioned to value external markers that we overlook how beauty fails to sustain us when the external world fades. Just consider the lives of the beautiful people we admire. Many of them fall into a terrifying paradox. Their worth becomes attached to their appearance, their value reduced to the surface. As time passes, they find themselves emptied. What happens when the attraction fades, or when new beauty emerges, younger and fresher? Does their identity shatter too? What happens to the woman who is defined by her beauty when beauty is no longer what it once was? On the other hand, discipline does not fade. The strength forged from enduring pain, from mastering time, from staying true to one's path despite temptation, only grows. The power of discipline is that it anchors you in something that does not depend on fleeting trends or others' fleeting attention. It is the constant reaffirmation of self, the refusal to bow to the transitory demands of beauty or approval. But the real power of discipline, as we'll explore, lies not in its permanent nature, but in its quiet ability to attract others to you. It is attractive not in spite of its depth, but because of it. It is like gravity, undistracted by the surface world, but capable of pulling everything toward it irresistibly. So, while beauty may turn heads, discipline commands attention, respect, and trust. And in a world where those qualities are increasingly rare, that is a force that will always be far more powerful. The question then becomes, how do we as individuals reclaim this power from the shallow pull of beauty? How do we shed the illusion of beauty as success and step into the deeper, more fulfilling realm of discipline and self-mastery? That is the next step in understanding why discipline is the one thing that will always remain attractive, even when beauty fades. The consequences of this warped relationship with beauty and discipline aren't immediately obvious. They lurk beneath the surface, shaping our behaviors, our decisions, and our self-worth in ways we don't fully realize. To see them, we must first look at the ways society encourages us to depend on external validation, the way we, as individuals, are conditioned to define ourselves through others' approval. The first consequence is the fragility of identity in a beauty-driven world. When we base our sense of self-worth on our appearance, we are tethering our identity to something external, something inherently fragile. Beauty is inherently transitory. It is in constant flux, influenced by age, trends, and societal standards that shift constantly. But because so much of society reinforces the idea that attractiveness equals value, we internalize this belief deeply. When beauty fades, whether with age, a change in style, or simply by being replaced by new faces in the limelight, we experience a crisis of identity. Who are we without our appearance? If beauty is the standard by which we measure our worth, then what remains when that standard is no longer met? This creates a vicious cycle of insecurity and dependence, where the individual constantly feels inadequate, always measuring their value against others, or, even worse, against an idealized version of themselves. Think about it. How many women, or even men, are obsessed with anti-aging products, cosmetic surgery, or fitness regimens? Not for the sake of health, but out of sheer terror that they will become invisible as they grow older. Beauty in this case becomes the ultimate shield against being forgotten or disregarded, even though it's a defense that can never truly withstand the test of time. It is in this environment that discipline becomes invisible, and ironically, more powerful. It doesn't rely on the shifting sands of appearance. It creates an inner strength that can endure. Think about how few people who are truly disciplined ever wonder whether they are good enough. Their worth does not depend on external praise. It depends on their own actions, their own commitment, their own ability to overcome. But the impact of beauty's primacy extends far beyond the individual. It reaches into society's collective psyche, creating an entire culture that worships surface-level qualities. We now live in a world that places inordinate value on image, and this affects everything from dating preferences to workplace dynamics. In the job market, for example, studies have shown that attractive people are often judged more favorably during interviews, even when qualifications and experience are equal. They are deemed to have better social skills, more intelligence, and higher competence, an effect known as the halo effect. This creates a world where appearance becomes an unfair advantage, where people are judged for how they look before they're ever given a chance to demonstrate their capabilities. The danger here is not just that appearance is prioritized, it's that people begin to believe they are only as good as their image. The hardworking, disciplined individual who might not have a traditionally attractive appearance might be overlooked or dismissed, while someone with less merit but greater appeal is given the benefit of the doubt simply because they fit a societal standard. This creates a deeply unequal playing field, one where people are rewarded not for their contributions or abilities, but for their ability to play the game of surface-level appeal. The long-term effects of this are disastrous. It leads to a world where, instead of striving for mastery, growth, and inner strength, people are conditioned to chase external markers of success. The right look, the right image, the right persona, while the truly transformative qualities like discipline, self-control, and resilience are cast into the background. And while this cultural norm has created an obsession with beauty, it has also bred a deep dissatisfaction with the path of self-mastery. Discipline is seen as hard, boring, unglamorous, and, worst of all, unappreciated. It is the work done in private, the hours spent building a skill, the relentless persistence, the patience in waiting for results. It doesn't come with instant validation. It doesn't get likes or followers. It is the slow, invisible process of forging something that lasts. But because it is not immediately visible or celebrated, discipline often feels like a thankless task, unworthy of the attention we give beauty. But in this neglect, we miss the most vital point. Disregarding discipline in favor of beauty comes with a hidden cost. This cost is internalized helplessness. When people prioritize their appearance over their actions, they subconsciously adopt the belief that success is something to be passively received, not actively earned. The truth is, breaking free from a world that constantly elevates beauty as the ultimate standard requires a complete reorientation of how we perceive worth, success, and self-value. It requires a deep philosophical rebellion, a willingness to step outside the expectations that society, the media, and even our own insecurities have built around us. To rebel against the dominance of beauty is not to reject appearance altogether. It is to stop seeing it as the cornerstone of your identity, to stop letting it define your worth. It is to place your focus on what is truly lasting and to move from the external game of validation to the internal game of self-mastery. The first step in this rebellion is to understand that discipline is freedom. We tend to think of discipline as restrictive, as a form of self-imposed punishment. It sounds like a lifestyle full of sacrifice, devoid of pleasure or excitement. But the reality is that discipline creates the very freedom we long for, the kind of freedom that allows us to live intentionally, without the constant weight of comparison or self-doubt, the kind of freedom that doesn't rely on approval or superficial measures of success. Take a moment to consider the difference between someone who is driven by external validation and someone who is driven by internal discipline. The first person reliant on beauty or recognition, is often a prisoner to circumstance, to the whims of others, to what society deems valuable at any given moment. The second person, however, has learned to redefine success on their own terms. They measure their worth not by the gaze of others, but by the work they put in, the consistency they maintain, the growth they achieve. They are not easily swayed by the ever-changing tides of cultural approval. This transformation is not a matter of simply deciding to reject beauty or external validation. It's about retraining your mind to focus on what is truly significant. The rebellious shift comes when you realize that beauty, though alluring and easy, is ultimately a trap. The world tells you that if you look the part, you can have it all. But you know deep down that looking the part doesn't make you the part. True mastery of self, of discipline, of control. That's the secret to becoming who you truly are, and to attracting the respect and power that will sustain you in the long run. So, how do you begin this process of rebellion? The first step is to reject the shortcuts, the beauty standards that promise easy validation and instant rewards. Instead, embrace the hard work that no one sees, the hours you spend refining a skill, the days you push through fatigue, the uncomfortable conversations you have with yourself when you realize you're avoiding the discipline that will serve you. Discipline requires accountability. It's about holding yourself to a standard that no one can take away from you, not because you look a certain way, but because you earned it. It's the difference between wishing for success and building success through sustained effort. Discipline teaches you to be consistent, to show up every day even when motivation wanes, and to measure progress by the quality of your actions, not by the quantity of praise you receive. But here's the most powerful truth. As you begin this rebellion, you will start to notice something extraordinary. People start paying attention to you in a different way. Not because you look like everyone else, but because you command respect. People begin to feel your presence before they see your face. They notice the strength in your voice, the calm in your demeanor, the confidence in your actions. The fascinating thing about discipline is that it draws respect from those who value substance over appearance. It creates an aura, not of beauty, but of power. A quiet power that doesn't need to shout to be heard, that doesn't need to display its worth in public, but lets its presence be known through actions. When you're disciplined, you are more likely to find allies and opportunities that others miss, simply because people recognize real strength when they see it. Imagine walking into a room, not just to be seen, but to command attention. Not because you've curated your look or followed trends, but because there is something deeper at work. People gravitate towards you, want to hear your thoughts, want to be around you. This is silent magnetism, not rooted in beauty, but in inner strength and self-mastery. It's the embodiment of discipline as the ultimate form of beauty. True beauty attracts respect, loyalty, and admiration, not through physical appearance, but through inner strength. Beauty is temporary. Discipline shapes your life with intention and purpose. So why do we still chase beauty? Because we've been conditioned to believe it's the shortcut to everything. Society tells us beauty is enough, but this is a lie. Discipline does what beauty cannot. It provides control over your life and actions. It allows you to build rather than simply attract. Discipline makes you more attractive to those who value strength, resilience, and reliability. Think about those who truly influence you. Are they the most beautiful? Or are they the ones who stand firm, follow through, and refuse to be swayed? They possess something far more powerful, the discipline to be themselves. Discipline isn't about looks. It's about power that doesn't need to be flaunted. It's the kind of power that doesn't need attention, but naturally commands respect. Beauty is fleeting, but discipline is enduring. When you stop measuring yourself by external beauty standards and focus on cultivating discipline, you attract respect, not for your looks, but for your strength, your resilience, your self-definition. True beauty comes from mastering discipline. It's the freedom to be yourself unapologetically. The truth is, discipline is the foundation of confidence, creativity, and achievement. When you embrace it as your source of beauty, you become exactly what the world needs. You are undeniable, someone who attracts respect, not because of your appearance, but because you've mastered the art of living fully. So, the question is, what will you choose? Will you remain in the shallow world of beauty, or step into the lasting world of discipline and self-mastery? If you found this insight empowering, don't let it end here. Like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more powerful content that will transform how you see yourself in the world. And if you're ready to step into the world of discipline over beauty, drop a comment below and let us know how you're starting your journey today. We're in this together, and your next step begins right now.